rain had been falling since dawn, thin and cold, soaking the city streets until even the concrete looked tired. Jonathan Miller was standing by the floor-to-ceiling window of his mansion, coffee untouched in his hand when the doorbell rang. It was an unusual sound, sharp, almost fragile, cutting through the silence of wealth. He frowned. No meetings were scheduled. No guests expected. Something told him this knock didn't belong to his world. When the housekeeper opened the door, a weak voice followed. "Can I clean your house for a plate of food?" Jonathan heard it clearly. His heart skipped before his mind could stop it. He turned slowly, and the moment he saw her standing there, thin, soaked, eyes hollow yet painfully familiar, he froze. Her name was Mary. She stood on the marble floor like she didn't belong there, clutching a torn jacket around herself. Her hair was pulled back messily, her hands trembling from cold and hunger. She looked older, worn by years of struggle, but Jonathan would have recognized those eyes anywhere. They were the same eyes that once laughed beside him in a small church wedding, the same eyes that cried the night he walked away. Mary didn't recognize him at first. How could she? The man before her wore an expensive suit, his face harder, his life wrapped in luxury. She just saw another rich man who might turn her away. "I can scrub floors, windows, anything," she said softly. "I haven't eaten since yesterday." Jonathan's throat tightened. 20 years. 20 years since he had left her with nothing but promises he never kept. 20 years since ambition mattered more than love. "Mary," he whispered. Her eyes widened, the plate in her hand slipped slightly. "Jonathan," her voice cracked as memories crashed into her all at once. "Is it really you?" The house felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier. Jonathan nodded, unable to speak. He had built companies, controlled boardrooms, crushed competitors, but he had never prepared himself for this moment. Mary had once been a schoolteacher, full of faith and kindness. They had struggled together in the early years, dreaming of a better future. But when Jonathan's first big opportunity came, it came with distance, pressure, and pride. He changed. He stopped listening. When she got sick and couldn't work for months, he called her a burden. One night after a brutal argument, he left and never looked back. Mary lost everything after that. Her health worsened. Medical bills swallowed her savings. The school replaced her. Friends drifted away. Faith was the only thing she held onto when the world went silent. Now she stood before the man who had once promised to protect her, asking him for food. Jonathan felt shame burn through him. "You're not here to clean," he said firmly. "You're here to eat." He led her inside, ignoring the housekeeper's confused stare, and sat her at the long dining table that had rarely known warmth. When food was placed before her, Mary hesitated, whispering a prayer before taking her first bite. Jonathan watched her eat slowly, gratefully, every movement reminding him of the woman he had broken. As the rain continued outside, words began to spill. Mary spoke of shelters, of nights spent praying on bus benches, of jobs she lost because she was too tired or too sick. She spoke without bitterness, only truth. Jonathan listened, each sentence a weight pressing against his chest. "I never hated you," she said quietly. "I asked God to forgive you long before I could." That was the moment Jonathan broke. Tears came fast and unfiltered. "I ruined your life," he said. "I chose money over you. I told myself you'd be fine, and I never checked." Mary looked at him gently. "We both survived," she said, "just differently." Jonathan didn't let her leave that night. He offered her a room, clean clothes, medical care. At first, Mary refused, pride mixed with fear, but hunger and exhaustion finally won. She stayed. The days that followed changed everything. Doctors treated illnesses she had ignored for years. Rest brought color back to her face. And Jonathan, for the first time in decades, learned what humility felt like. But the real challenge wasn't money, it was forgiveness. Jonathan wanted to erase the past with generosity, but Mary didn't need rescuing. She needed respect. Healing took time. Awkward conversations, painful memories, long silences. Jonathan attended church again, sitting quietly in the back, listening to sermons about grace that now felt personal. One evening, weeks later, Mary stood in the doorway of his study. "I found a job," she said. "At a small Christian school. They need teachers." Jonathan smiled, pride mixed with relief. "I'm happy for you." "I won't stay here forever," she added gently. "But thank you for seeing me." Jonathan nodded. "I should have seen you long ago." Before she left, Mary turned back. "God has a strange way of bringing people face to face with their sins," she said, "but also with redemption." Years later, Jonathan would fund shelters, support struggling teachers, and quietly share his story, not as a millionaire, but as a man who once ignored a knock at his heart. And Mary, she found peace, purpose, and a future she thought was lost. The story spread, not of wealth but of grace. Because sometimes, the greatest miracle isn't a second chance at love. It's a second chance to do what's right.